Analysis. What can we learn from the overnight success story of the Battle Royale genre? What started out as a bug-ridden game modification is now the most popular genre in gaming history. How did this happen? Moderated by Chris Kissack, SMP eSports. Santhosh Palavesh, Playmonk. Kirsten James Kirkop, GMR. Simon Telmer, Eden Sports.
Okay, so last thing on a Friday, last, I think, talk of the conference. I'm just going to let the guys introduce themselves. We're going to try and stay on topic, but also, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. It's a bit of a weird question, so we're just going to use this time to just talk generally about esports. I mean, we're all very passionate about esports and the genre as well, and I know what you guys are doing locally in Malta, so I'm really excited to hear about what you guys are doing. So if you just want to introduce yourselves, and we can go from there.
Sure, shall I start?
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm director at Eden Esports, which is basically a local esports events company. We mainly do tier 1 events, so that's events for professional Counter-Strike. So that would be teams like Team Liquid, Fnatic, FaZe, you know, sort of that level of competition. And sort of what we're doing is through our involvement with the Eden Leisure Group, which is like our mother company. So it's the company that owns Intercontinental and so on. We basically offer a full suite of services. So we can set up the event, we can host teams, for example, for boot camps. There's a lot that both ourselves as the group and Malta in general can offer, and we aim to synergize that as much as possible.
How long have you been going for?
So I've been in esports for like 11 years now, but Eden Esports has been around for, I believe, 3 years. So that's like 2017 or something.
Okay.
So 2.5.
Fantastic. Is it a big team?
No, we're quite small, so we're like 5 or 6 people working, but obviously we use a lot of the group's resources. We have partners that we work with to basically get the job done.
Fantastic.
I'm Kirsten. I'm the founder of GMR Entertainment. Personally, I've been involved in esports for about 13, 14 years. I used to play Call of Duty. And
were you really good?
Well, I consider myself as a semi-pro player back then,
Okay.
when there was no social media, so nobody know exactly. No, around 7 years ago, me and a couple of friends of mine started what was called gamers.com.mt back then. Now it's rebranded to GMR Entertainment. And we are basically a Maltese company focusing on organizing esports events for community as well as expos and conferences. I mean, last month we organized Playcon, which was Malta's first game development and esports expo.
Which was great, I attended,
Yeah,
it was good.
Thank you very much. And there we had a number of stands showcasing, companies showcasing what they do. Eden were there as well.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the idea was that we get everyone under one roof and showcase what the game development and esports industries are offering in Malta.
And there was some big names at that event as well.
Yes,
so it was my first conference at Malta, and walking around and seeing the ESL guys, Alienware.
MTV, Alienware. I mean, exciting times ahead. So in the upcoming years, we're going to keep on growing these kind of events.
And what would you say is attracted those guys to Malta, those big names? Is it what you guys are doing in the space, or did they just see Malta as a jurisdiction which is really supporting the esports space?
Yes, I mean, one of the biggest, I think, reasons behind this is, first of all, the government is pushing a lot in, I mean, nurturing the esports industry, as has been done in iGaming and blockchain. They're now looking at video game development and esports as the next big thing to attract international investment, and especially to nurture local talent to pursue careers in both game development and esports. Which is important to mention that esports is not just people playing video games, but we have production, analysts, news. It's a whole new industry.
And the local education is quite important there as well.
Yes,
at the event,
yes. At the event,
they were bringing there were school children in, they were bringing the buses in.
On Thursday and Friday, we had around 2,000 school children, ranging from 7 years of age till around 12, 13.
Okay.
And the idea was to expose, as I said, these industries and what opportunities are out there in terms of careers and what can their future be in 10 years.
Fantastic. Santosh.
Hi, so this is Santhosh here, and I'm the co-founder of Playmonk. Playmonk is 1.5 years old company. We're based out of Singapore and London. Playmonk is a free-to-use social media platform dedicated only for gamers and esports guys, right? But what we've been doing is we've been doing a ton of research in the esports community, trying to understand how do we shift the industry from being a sponsorship-driven economy into self-sustaining economy, right? So that was one of the major problems that we wanted to solve, and it's been a good journey till now. And we launched in India, some parts of Southeast Asia, that includes Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. That's where a large amount of esports gamers are, and we have close to 75K plus users already on the platform. So our platform is similar to a LinkedIn, but dedicated only to gamers and the esports guys. But the USP there is there's a free-to-use tournament engine. Like one of the biggest problem in conducting a real-time battle royale tournament is, the logistics involved and stuff like that. So we are giving a free-to-use tournament engine for them to use, and also there are features like marketplace and etc. So we want to take esports to the last mile rather than the big names in the industry. Only when the last mile people starts getting more involved, then we believe that the economy will become more self-sustaining rather than only being a sponsorship-driven economy. So that's what we've been doing.
Grassroots players.
Yes, the grassroots players. So I'm talking about the bunch of school kids who come back and play in the evenings, these wannabe streamers. There are millions of them, right? Yes, the fanatics, yes, the Gen Gs, they're the minimal, the percentage is very less. But the last mile component is really huge, right? So that's what we're looking for to tap. And if we're able to kindle an economy amongst themselves, then I believe that will be a true growth for esports. So the first pain point that we are looking at solving is connecting them together. Like, for example, I get connected with you in Fortnite or PUBG, but I do not know your real name, right? But I know your gaming ID. All I need to do is come to our platform, Playmonk, type in your gaming ID, and I find your profile. I then your stats and etc. Then I can interact with you, play games with you. I can host tournaments, all for free, right? But there is a revenue model needed to back of it that is more like our secret sauce. So next month, December 1st week, we are going live in the EU region. Our tech is all ready. So we are almost a 30-35 member team, and we have done our seed plus pre-series A. Now we're looking at series A plus B funding put together. So we are that's what we do in Gist.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So we better keep on topic before they turn my mic off for going well off. But I have a love-hate relationship with the battle royale genre. So when I say to people that I work in esports, if they're not in the industry, they will say, "Oh, you mean like Fortnite?" Because they've seen the headlines, they've seen the burger winning the $3 million, and we heard on some of the panels this afternoon some people saying that Fortnite or PUBG or just the battle royale genre is not considered an esport. Yeah. And you've got different schools of thought. Or does it even matter if it is considered? So what do you think, guys?
Ultimately, I see even, for example, events that we do as sources of content. So even the sort of the talks that we had before were all about content and how to personalize it. And I find that esports and also by extension esports events, including like even stuff like streaming and so on, is all sort of content that engages the user. I mean, if you look at Twitch, if you look at Huya, these platforms are managing to stick people for hours at a time. So definitely there's something being done right there. But in terms of Fortnite or in terms of sort of an industry that is being built on competition, obviously it's very hit and miss when it comes to games like Fortnite, because their mechanics sometimes might seem a bit unfair, especially to people who have been playing the game for a long time and they're professionals. It all depends on how sort of the game is structured and how sort of even the game developer themselves deliver the ecosystem, because not every successful game has to be an esport. I mean, you can very easily say that Fortnite is a successful game, so whether or not it's an esport, to me at least, is kind of irrelevant. Now, if they want to push their own tournaments, yeah, that's fine. But obviously, there's the whole casual base that they need to take care of. And in fact, there was like a very controversial mechanic, the mecha, the big...
the mechs.
The brute, yeah. That was added to the game. That obviously for very competitive players was a big pain, because it was Like
it was
a
OP.
very-
It was seriously OP.
it was, But for example, for casual players who have joined 99% of their games and they've never won anything,
Yeah.
you know, for them it's like, oh, I have a chance to at least maybe win one game, you know. And ultimately, those are the customers who are buying the in-game items. They're the customers who are very actively engaging with the product. So in reality, to me, I mean, this argument is also for mobile games. Are mobile games esports? You know, like as PC gamers, as console gamers, we have this argument, this very elitist attitude towards mobile gamers. But in reality, I see mobile as the way forward, especially when it comes to competition. Why? Because the penetration rate for smartphones is much greater than the penetration rate, for example, for PCs. A PC is expensive. We tend to forget that in very developed countries.
Maybe look at PUBG.
Yeah.
There's a huge fan base of PUBG in India.
Yeah. For sure.
And there's a lot of really good players coming out of that region.
And on mobile too, as in
Exactly,
PUBG
and
mobile.
it's
that's
mobile.
right,
That's just
yeah.
when it's PUBG on mobile. And it comes back to that question: what makes a title an esport? And my stance has always been it's the fans and the community. Because without the fans and the community, you can have a very good esports game, but if you've got nobody to watch it, you can't fill stadiums, you're not going to attract sponsors.
Yeah.
So on one side, you take the Battle Royale genre, they've got a big fan base. Okay, it's starting to dwindle now, but they're still filling stadiums, they're still selling microtransactions. So on that side of things, it is an esport. But from competitive side of things, if you're going to move the goalposts every single month, and it's very difficult. So I can see the pushback on either side. But then you've also got the challenges from a tournament operator side of things, logistically, to run a battle royale tournament with 100 players. I mean, you've had experience in that side of things.
Exactly. As I mentioned last month during PlayCon, one of the main events was actually a Fortnite tournament. The idea was that we had around 300 players, which we split in 6 sessions of 50 players each. And we basically took that decision of splitting into 50 players and not 100 players, since Fortnite is played with 100-player matches, is purely down to logistical challenges. First of all, it was the first tournament of that scale in Malta in Battle Royale. And having 50 players playing at one time is no easy feat. Definitely, it's you have live production. So first of all, you need to make sure that you capture the right moments. The crew guys are aware of where the player is sitting. The director is in constant communication with the cameraman, telling you have to switch on that guy, etc. So that's the first challenge is how do you reach the spectators and try to catch all the action. Secondly, you have the technical issues. Again, 50 players, which means 50 computers. Everybody knows the challenges of a computer. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And of course, you have issues from the servers themselves. We had rules where if a player unfortunately doesn't join the game, the game has to continue. Otherwise, you are going to increase the probability that if you stop for player A, you have to stop for player B, C, D, etc. So it's a whole beast when compared to traditional esports games like Counter-Strike and FIFA, etc., where it's much more content.
Do you not think that opens up additional opportunities over some of the other games? So if you've got 50 players, potentially you've got 50 viewpoints.
Yes.
So thinking back when I watched the Fortnite World Cup, there was available streams to jump from different players.
Yes.
And by doing that, potentially you're expanding the sponsorship opportunities. So you've got over 50 players, 100 players,
yes,
and each one has an individual brand, an individual sponsor. So while it does have the problems logistically, it opens up other doors.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just to point this out, I mean, to arrive at that point, you mentioned it's the Fortnite World Cup, run by Epic themselves, with infinite amount of resources, to put it this way. For tournament organizers like us, who are still starting out and, I mean, growing year on year, it's not that easy to offer the same level of means, of tools, as these guys are.
And
So
I think it's important, though, to from your side, it's important to support that genre and support, because if you've got young players that are playing Fortnite or PUBG.
Exactly.
And the opportunity to give them exposure to playing at a tournament level. And who knows where Fortnite is going to be in a few years' time. And once Fortnite stops being relevant, or you want to continue to nurture that hunger is in any other sport. And if you can then convert those players, or they'll convert naturally into playing a different type of game. They may go into CSGO.
Exactly.
They may go into...
I mean, we had some chats with some of the players, and they told us, usually at home I'm a very good player, but I'm here playing in front of an audience. I'm literally blanking, you know?
Right? And that will come with time. And giving them the opportunity to play on the big stage, and they will learn from that. Is quite exciting. As we're at a gambling conference, I think it's important that we do touch slightly on the gambling side. What opportunities do you think there are? I mean, I've got my own opinions on this one, but what opportunities do you think there are in the Battle Royale genre compared to other sports from a betting point of view?
I think esports in general has the very good characteristic that all the data is digitized. Now, whether you can access it sort of in the kosher way or not is one thing, but the reality is that anything that is done in that server is being tracked somewhere. Okay, so I think from a live betting point of view, and I can say this because even sort of we have agreements with data companies for our events, is that the amount of products that you can offer is pretty much endless. Because, for example, whereas in football you have very finite sort of events, like, say, number of passes or, say, a corner or whatever. I mean, if you look at a game as complex as Dota, for example, that's a big following in Southeast Asia, is that, you know, like, who's going to get the first kill? Who's going to get the first tower? Who's going to die first? I mean, I could go on for, like, another 10 minutes just listing events off the top of my head, saying, you know, what the potential is there. And I think for Battle Royale, once you have that amount of events, for example, that in Dota is generated with 10 players, that alone what you can do with 100. I mean, the bounds there are endless, especially when you consider that different players have different fans. So similarly to what our colleague was saying before, like if you know that a fan has a particular favorite player, then you're going to offer odds, or you're going to offer a product that it is tailor-made around that player, around that team. And that, I think, is the way forward, especially when you have such a large amount of engagement that goes on with, specifically with the players and specifically with the fans. Ultimately, that's going to be the future of both gambling itself and of esports and how esports is monetized.
And do you think the Battle Royale genre is peaked now? Do you think it's going to have to reinvent itself? Or if you look at the Call of Duty mobile games and the last man standing, there are other developers that are still trying to find that magic sauce, that Battle Royale? Or do you think we've hit that tired kind of...
Let's put it this way. I once heard a linguist say something along the lines of, you know, a word has become popular when it starts to be imitated and twisted and morphed. Like, for example, the word selfie got like 100 different variations, you know. So I think genres of games in general are quite similar to that. I could mention Flappy Bird as well. I mean, everyone who's a bit like in their ears has heard of Flappy Bird, you know. But for example, the second it came out, like it started to spawn lots of different sort of, you could call them knockoffs, really. I mean, imitations, trying to capture the sort of the format. And I think Battle Royale is kind of going through the same motions right now. So you have, for example, the very first game was actually the mod, as is mentioned in the title. Fortnite wasn't one of the very first ones to come out. So Fortnite was a reaction almost to PUBG's success. You know, so even Fortnite itself is sort of an iteration over the format in general, you know. So, but what Fortnite did correctly is they happened to hit upon a mechanic that was loved by its players. And why can't that happen in the future? I mean, for example, Apex Legends, we were talking about it before. It came out like literally with no marketing, no leaks, nothing, and it almost blew Fortnite out of the water. So why can't that happen again? I mean, there will always be something that sort of drives and disrupts ultimately the market, as is the case in other things. I mean, first we had the MOBAs, we had FPSs, now it's Battle Royales, and who knows what the next one will be. You know?
What do you think, Santhosh?
I think publishers are also being a little more conservative when it comes to the data sharing. For example, when we built our tournament engine, we weren't able to derive data for PUBG Mobile. PUBG PC had an open developer concept here. Fortnite is very restrictive about the data being given out. Call of Duty Mobile is opening up the data. So I think it's too early to judge where the industry will go. Battle Royale is still, it's a very young kid. And I think it's more of a new, I think the day before yesterday news, the Free Fire founder became a billionaire, right? So Battle Royale has become the thing to be the next big billionaire thingy in esports. So I think they're all enjoying the fruits now. So slowly that has to settle down, and that is kind of clocking out the larger vision. For example, imagine Fortnite gives up an API and maybe a map builder and enables people to do custom maps and etc. Then I think that's going to be still skyrocketing. But I think we are ready to touch that phase. Like, for example, we don't give the same treatment like what we give for a Counter-Strike to Fortnite. Fortnite is still very epic-driven. Counter-Strike is more like, the whole world owns it type. So it has to get into that drive. Then I think the opportunities that come will be much, much better. And secondly, even arriving at the odds are currently being very difficult when it comes to battle royale games. Based on the probability and etc. See, I can blindly bet on somebody, a Dota team maybe, or a CS:GO team maybe, but I cannot bet on a battle royale. All you need is one thing not right at the right time or the right place, then the player is down. Like we all know, Marshmallow was out in the first round where in Fortnite I was like, oh my god, right? So it depends. There's too much probabilities, right? One wrong placement of a vehicle in PUBG, or one wrong place you jump. So there's too much of probability. I think the industry will still get a little more mature. I think we still don't have the threshold data to arrive at it. And yes, publisher also has to look into the developer side support to make sure that the industry nurtures from an overall perspective. That's my personal view.
Have you seen a drop in people coming and requesting from when you put on the next tournament? Is it a case of we want a CS:GO tournament, or we want a Battle Royale tournament, or what's the trend at the moment? A FIFA?
Locally, well, FIFA, we are doing something with MFA actually. It's going to be part of the EA circuit. So the winner is going to actually get points and hopefully be there in the World Cup as well. But I mean, the trend always changes. Battle Royale is something that's very popular nowadays. Most of the upcoming players are console gamers, and they are much more familiar with games like Fortnite, PUBG, etc. So I personally, to be honest with you, I still prefer the good old games like Counter-Strike, Call of Duty.
But we're old now, right?
Yeah, I mean, but yes, you have to keep up with the trend, and as it seems, the trend is going to be Battle Royale.
Okay, so we're running out of time. There's a clock that's blinking down there. But just to finish up, what are you guys coming up? Just use this as an opportunity. What have you got coming up in the next?
So we actually have our flagship event in December. So that's the Champions Cup Finals. So that's basically a $300,000 CS tournament. So it sort of builds on the success that it had last year. That's pretty much it from an events point of view. I mean, for us, it's
yeah. I mean, for us as well. Actually, 2 weeks from now, we have the Malta eSports Festival, which is going to be the 7th edition this year. It's going to be focused on mainly Call of Duty and Tekken. We have around 300 international players coming in to compete in both those games. And we are already starting for next year. PlayCon again is going to be part of the events that we're going to do.
Santhosh?
So December, we're launching our platform to the Western markets, especially EU and the UK. Our idea is basically to bring in at least 2 million casual gamers into the platform who has a maximum probability to jump into a professional esports career. So that's what we are aiming at doing. So we're partnering with universities, schools, and etc. for people to start using our platform and to reach out to other people and eventually, drive a self-sustaining economy. That's what we're looking forward to.
Amazing. Okay. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.